We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Blake Ruffino. This is Are You Serious Sports. We hope that you're making it a good one. We know that we are as well. Massive show in store for you tonight as we are guessing it up double time here tonight. Stefan Krajisnik, who covers Mississippi State for the Clarion Ledger, joins us at 7:30. Zack Nagy joins us at 7:50. A lot of LSU versus Mississippi State here tonight. We got player availabilities. We're going to go do our Mississippi State preview. A lot of LSU stuff to get in here to tonight. We even got a Ruffino's rant about how the NCAA is absolutely Rudy Poo. Again, lots and lots and lots of things to get in here to tonight. And as we do every Tuesday and Thursday, hashtag Ask Blake, thoughts, questions, concerns. You can put them inside the Rudy Crew chat, and we get to as many of those questions as we can. So a very, very big show in store for you here tonight. Looking forward to it. You know what's interesting? What's very interesting is at some point the wall of the lack of competence in the institution known as the NCAA will come down. And I am here for that day whenever that day comes. The simple fact that we have to run out here and talk about a wide receiver or even Mason Smith, for that matter, in reference to the NCAA being Rudy Poos is a big thing. But it's time that somebody stands up and does something because it's getting out of hand. We are too quick. Like, this world just doesn't make sense to me sometimes. There's no common sense anymore. You know, like you start seeing some of the things that are coming out about Mel Tucker, and you know, people were trying to and have already convicted him, and now there are reports coming out that it was consensual. So I just don't get it. I 1000% don't get some of the things that go on in this world. You know, you got Rick Pitino still coaching college basketball when he had hookers and cocaine on campus and players were partying like it was the Showtime Lakers. I don't know if any of you are watching that show on HBO, by the way, with Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun, a pretty good watch. But it gets to my point where we need a commissioner. We need a commissioner. Also, Mississippi State. Listen to your boy here. Do I think you're going to win Saturday? Yeah, I do. 100%, I think that you're going to win. Nathaniel Watson and Jett Johnson are dudes. Sean Preston has been a dude this year. Marks for Mississippi State, Jaquavius Marks. Their running back has been a dude. Guys, he's already at 250 rushing yards, two games in. I mean, that's ridiculous. Already has 8 catches, 91 yards. So pushing 300 yards of total offense in 2 games, that's incredible. He has 3 rushing touchdowns already. So you got your hands full this weekend. We'll talk about them in our preview and what I think LSU needs to do to stop both them offensively and defensively. We'll get into that greatly tonight. So a lot to get into. We got Covington in the house here tonight. Ingrid says, Blake, we will win this weekend, with the tongue face emoji, or I don't know what you call that emoji. Forgive me for not knowing the proper usage. She also says Central Louisiana is in the house. We talking about like Central BR, Central, like East Baton Rouge Central. Central is in the house. You got to love it. Where is everybody listening to us from tonight? You got Don says, what's up, Blake? Seminary, Mississippi is in the house. Raised in Morgan City, though. Love the show. You got to love it. You got to love it. Kevin Abear says, League City, Texas. That's not Kevin. There's Kevin. But League City, Texas is in the house. Good to have League City in here. Jason Dooley says, go Tigers from Roswell, Georgia. It's a burb in Atlanta. Jason, my brother lives in Woodstock, I believe it is. Yeah, Woodstock. We go up there every now and then, but yeah, they live in a burb too in their Atlanta. But was it Buckhead? I went to Buckhead one time in my life. Everybody was driving a Range Rover. I was driving a mom van. Megan doesn't have a van. She has a Traverse. She wants a van. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you think my wife wants a minivan. Should we get my wife a minivan? 2 kids. Should Megan get a minivan? That should be the poll question of the night. You know what I'm going to do? You know what I'm actually going to do? I'm going to put this inside the chat of a poll. Let's do a poll. Start a poll. Should Megan get a minivan? She's going to kill me for this, but let's start the poll here on YouTube. Okay. We got a lot to get into here tonight. Adam says the big town of Summerall, Mississippi. Albuquerque, says Jordan Haydad. Gerald says Foley, Gulf Shores checking in. How's the weather over there, my man? Raceland is in the building. Jerry Covington says he's live from Council Bluffs, Iowa. Northeast, Louisiana, top of the boot. Council Bluffs is in the building. Yeah, Council Bluffs is got a lot of thumbs downs up in here. No minivan. Danny Snow says, though, we love our minivan. Karen Crow's in the house. Gulfport, Mississippi. Clayton, North Carolina. Our buddy Tony says he's in Carlsbad, New Mexico. Yeah, my man's out there working, trying to make that paper, man. Trying to make that paper. Good to have you in here, Tony. Speaking of a lot of places, here in the great state, it is with deep sadness, a place here locally in St. Helena. They had a school shooting today, and a family friend of ours lost his son. Check on your kids, man. Check on your kids. So to the community of St. Helena, to the Gordon family, we're praying for you, man. We're praying for you. I cannot mentally process what the Gordon family is going through. I can't. I can't fathom it. If you want to, I do not care who you are. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care your political beliefs. I don't care your skin color. I don't care about anything. Nothing. And then we've had some issues with, shootings at high school football games. Are you that big of an idiot? Are you that big of an idiot? Come on, man. High school kids can be rough, and bullying is not something that should be tolerated. But come on, man. People are losing their lives over this stupid shit. You're bringing a gun because you think you're badass? Bro, put the gun down. Put up your dukes and see what happens. Like, Jesus Christ, man. To the Gordon family, we're praying for you. My God. Why? Jeez. Brandon Graziano says, we love our minivan. We got 3 kids. Yeah, minivans are, I'm starting to like them. Shade Nobles Terrio says, I don't know how to say that. Defunic Springs, Florida. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right. Let's get. Oh, my man says live from Budapest. Sea King's in Budapest. Sea King, you really in Budapest? Hey, the reason I ask him that is because this man right here is so rich, he probably is in Budapest. You know what I mean? Like, look at the hat he's got on. My man's smart too. He's a Yankees fan. Good to have you in the building here too as well. See, all right, let's get rolling. Everybody, do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Share to all of those social media groups. Share to all of those social media pages. If you're listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, and notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. And if you're watching us on Fubo TV, welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's do this. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag, good friends over at GM Varno & Sons. We got a lot to get into here tonight. Let's break down Mississippi State. Stefan Krajisnik joins us in about 17 minutes from right now, and we'll talk to him. He'll break them down as well. Let's get into it, man. It's going to be fun. Stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. With over 65 years of experience, nobody is better equipped to service in your vehicle than GM Varno & Sons. RV repair, big rig overhauls, motorhome chassis, routine maintenance, tire rotations, tire sales. No job is too big or too small over at GM. If you break down the side of the road in the greater Baton Rouge area, they will come and get you. And the best thing about that is that they can come and get you, and then they can bring your vehicle back to their shop and start the repairs right then. Again, GM Varno & Sons. Go see them over at 2500 Fuller Boulevard. Give them a call at 225-664-9992. 225-664-9992. Tell them your good friend Blake Ruffino sent you on by. We're back. Let's get this thing rolling, man. Let's get this thing started. All right. So listen, not going to spend a lot of time on this because I don't have a lot of time to talk on this because we got a lot to talk about in our handy-dandy notebook right here on all the film breakdown and all the things that we've seen so far this year from Mississippi State. Number one, the NCAA came out with, in case you missed it, the NCAA came out today with a letter to North Carolina because in case you missed that too, their best wide receiver on their team, Tez, why is his name slipping my mind? Y'all help me in the chat. Now I got to go get it. I didn't even write the kid's name down. Regardless, help me in the chat. Why did I not write the kid's name down? The NCAA came back and said that their lives had been threatened in reference to some of the rulings that they've made. Tez Walker, thank you. Tez Walker, thank you. I don't know why it slipped me. I don't know why in my notes right here in the right-hand side I didn't write it down. Tez Walker got suspended for the year or was not ruled eligible for the year. Now, and I read the letter from the NCAA, and basically what they talked about in this letter was, oh, well, our lives are being threatened, and, you know, we do exactly what we think is the best for the institutions of college athletics. No, you don't, because if it was, you'd let the kid play. He lost the season when COVID happened. In his freshman year, he didn't play because his team forfeited the season. He transfers somewhere else because they forfeited a season. They didn't want to play anymore. He goes somewhere else to play football. He gets better, goes into the portal. Everybody and their mama wants him. And he goes back home to North Carolina, and you suspend him. You don't make him eligible for the year. Mason Smith, 3 weeks before quote-unquote NIL is legal, which, by the way, if you talk to any attorney, anybody with a legal background, what's got two thumbs and has one of those, if you talk to anybody with a legal background, the day that the Supreme Court said in the Ed O'Bannon case that NIL is legal, just because the state does not have any provisions over it doesn't make it illegal. And by the way, the Mason Smith game 1 suspension should have never happened, but they gave it to LSU so late that legally they couldn't fight it because that's what they do. They know what they're doing. Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, had a chance to make college athletics better. Charlie, as a great WWE wrestler, Kurt Angle would say, "You suck. You suck. You're a governor from Massachusetts, bud. You're literally one of the worst." You don't have to be a Democrat or Republican or whatever. You don't even have to be a politician, a career politician at that. Tess Walker should play. Tess Walker should play. I will continue to say this at every chance on this show that I get an availability to do so. We need commissioners in sports. What do you really think that a commissioner is worse than the NCAA? Can a commissioner really be worse than what the NCAA is right now? No. None. Zero. You know, you want to regulate the transfer portal. Meanwhile, literally, the Supreme Court says that you can't tell people where they can and can't go. Can you have provisions? Yes. Can you have some rulings? Yes. But he based his ruling off of everything that you had given him guidelines step by step. It's why I just don't ever understand why common sense always walks out the door, man. I don't get it. I never get it. But I guess I'm just a talking head on a sports show that sits here and says, hey, when is common sense going to ever prevail? Because it seems like in our world and society, that is few and far between sometimes when big decisions have to be made. Tess Walker, man, I'm sorry that you lost your junior year, man. You can go into the draft, and I hope you do. I hope you make a lot of money. But this show and this fan base, I guarantee you, stands with you, man. Everybody stands with you. Sorry that you had to lose your year because some dude in a sports coat sitting in a sports car who's been a career politician his whole life, never played football, never played basketball, never played baseball, a day in his life has to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. Sorry. All right. Let's move on. Listen. Over the last 3 days, we've done a lot of film breakdown on Mississippi State. They're not a bad team, y'all. Don't let that overtime win against Arizona fool you. Don't let it fool you. They're a good team. I went back today before the show and started a little last night and went back and watched last year's game. Man, you know what I continue to think about in that game? That from last year that I look into this year and say, man, is this a clone of itself? A lot of the same things were happening. Where's Harold Perkins? Can we tackle in the open field? Can we get a pass rush? Our DBs aren't playing that great. Sound familiar? Does that sound familiar at all? Because if it does, a year ago, you were in a lot of the same situations. Colby Richardson giving a touchdown in the back of the end zone. Now, I guess you could technically say that about Denver Harris last week, or that the secondary and this team didn't tackle well. But you know what really is interesting? After that win against Mississippi State at home, that team started getting a lot better. Is it going to happen here? You know what's also interesting? You had 1 sack or 2 sacks, really, against Southern or going into this game a year ago. Last year, you got after the quarterback. Matt House was very creative. He used a lot of stunts, a lot of twists. It's a different team and a different kind of scheme. I told you earlier in the show, and it bears repeating, that Mississippi State's philosophy offensively has completely, I don't want to say done a 180, but to some extent it has. You have a guy who, in Will Rogers a year ago, used to average maybe 40, 45 passing attempts a game. Through 2 games, he's only averaging 23. He's got 46 attempts on the year. Mississippi State's running a not really 2-quarterback system. Think of it, for a lot of you Saints fans, kind of like a Taysom Hill with Mike Wright. He has 6 carries on the year, 92 yards. But Jaquavius Marks is where their bread and butter has been made this season so far in the running game. They're going to be in pistol. They're going to run zone reads. They're going to run outside zone. They're going to run inside zone. They're going to pull their guards. They're going to hit the little fake screen and come back with a little inside run on the outside, so your safety has to sit up in the corner and can't come down in the box on the run. A lot of different things that they want to do inside the running game. But I think that they know ultimately that they're not going to be able to run the ball all like that this week. Yes, does LSU have some issues? Yeah. They've had some issues here and there. I'm going to tell you something, man. And I started hearing this a little bit yesterday, started hearing it again today. I think we're going to see some differences from the execution in LSU this week on this defense, especially in the front end. Back end, I can hear anything all the live long day. At this point, they're going to have to show me. But they did a year ago. This was game in the second half was Jaden Daniels' coming out party to LSU fans to some extent. If you remember, he had a fumble early, but then late in that game to win the game for you, really and truthfully, to win the game. Now that everything's behind us, the slot fade to Malik Neighbors was probably the biggest throw that he had made, obviously, until that point, but could arguably be the biggest throw that he had made in his entire LSU career, not named Alabama. When it comes to crunch time, the beauty of the throw, this game turned a lot around for you a year ago. Now, you would get blown out by Tennessee, but you started getting better, and this was a massive turning point. But like our buddy Carter said last night, this team is going to have to start off a little bit faster. They have the last 2 weeks. So defensively, they hadn't been bad. Can you put a 4-quarter game together? That has been the bugaboo for you. Boy, isn't that a white person thing to say? A bugaboo. Offensively, they're not great along the offensive line, in my opinion, through 2 games. I've seen Southeastern and Arizona defensive linemen do things that they should not be able to do against SEC offensive linemen. I've seen Will Rogers making checks at the line, and he has been highly efficient. When he got rolling against Arizona State, he really got rolling. Expect a lot of bootlegs, a lot of throws to the running backs. That is their game. That is their game. If Denver Harris, as Brian Kelly said, his thing is press man-to-man coverage, well, this is the game for him because you're going to have to play a lot of man-to-man. This is my game plan. You're going to have to play a lot of man-to-man on the outside early to stop that run early as well. Put more guys in the box. Be creative and send some blitzes. You know, I think LSU sent 4 or 5 blitzes this past weekend. You're going to have to send more. Didn't send a whole hell of a lot against Florida State. You're going to have to send more there. You're going to have to get in those run fits. But I think ultimately when it comes down to it, I think that you're prepared to beat this team. Now, I do agree with Brian Kelly on the biggest thing here. You got to be locked in and focused. An 11 a.m. kick start time does change your dynamic of what you need to do. There's no, LSU's played 2 night games so far, or 2 games at 6 p.m.-ish. Now you're going into an atmosphere on the road, early morning. They're having breakfast at 7:20 a.m. or I think is what Brian Kelly had said in his media availability yesterday. It's an early morning for kids who probably don't always wake up that early. Got to be locked in and focused. Defensively, as crazy as this sounds, I do want to see Mississippi State's offense actually do something against a team that's probably got more athletes than they've seen and that's worth a damn. But defensively, man, I got to admit, they have dudes. Mississippi State always has solid dudes defensively. Doesn't stop here. I look at Nate Watson, one of the middle linebackers. I look at Jed Johnson. Guys, Watson has 18 tackles on the year. He has 1.5 sacks. Johnson has 17 tackles on the year, 2 sacks. Combined, they have 3 interceptions combined between the both of them. All of those happened last week against Arizona. Sean Preston, the Louisiana native, had an interception and a forced fumble last week. They tackle really, really, really well in space. Really well in space. So I'm not saying that offensively this is a bad matchup for you, because offensively you haven't been too bad. You've been pretty consistent through 2 games. But the thing that when I look at Mississippi State and start asking questions, hey, man, you're going to see a lot of exotic blitzes from Zach Arnett with an O-line that, when you're not playing Grambling, look, Florida State did not look fantastic. This game, to me, from an offensive standpoint, is going to be more mental than it is physical when it comes to LSU's offense versus Mississippi State's defense. You're going to have to get Jaden out on the edges and running. I know through 2 games you've wanted him to sit back in the pocket and throw it around. And to his credit, man, he has. He's on pace. Here's what's crazy. What's crazy is through 2 games, Jayden Daniels is on pace to have a 4,000-yard season, right? I don't think in this game to win, you're going to be able to do that. Now, we just talked about the linebackers. We talked about Johnson. We talked about Watson. They need to start a podcast and call it Watson and Johnson. I should probably get that trademark and copyrighted, right? You're going to have to run your quarterback, and Jaden's going to have to hit the perimeter. That is how you're going to win. You cannot allow your Ferrari to sit in the garage. You don't buy a sports car to sit that sucker in the garage or a parking lot. You don't. You buy it to ride that thing. They see me rolling. They hating like you're a chameleonaire. Mississippi State defensively, man, they're a really good team. When we turn on when the team last night got, and the guys would attest to this, when we turned on that all-22 copy last night, and I think we got one on Sunday, defensively, they're not a joke. They're disciplined. They know where they need to be defensively. Jed Johnson's going to come off the edge on a lot of blitzes. You have to be fundamentally sound. All the shizite that Brian Kelly has talked about this week, he is not lying. He is 1,000% spot on. The team that is the most disciplined in this game, I think, is going to win. We'll find out. All right. Stefan Krajisnik. See, last year at this time, I got his first name right or wrong and his last name right. Isn't that just par for the course on this show? We are 771 episodes into this thing. Par for the course, man. All right. Let's talk about our good friend Tyler Alexander over at eXp Realty, our good friend Kara False over at State Farm. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. Let's talk some more Mississippi State versus LSU. We do that next.
He will sell your house and find you a new. Well, Tyler's the man. He's here for you. If you want to buy or sell, well, it's not too late. Dial 955-0008. Just call 955-0008. Y'all call Tyler. He'll shoot you straight.
Tyler, guys, you might know my good friend Carol False and all the great service that he provides over at State Farm. He is your good neighbor after all. But did you know State Farm has surprisingly great rates as well? Along with the great neighbor service, State Farm agent Carol False has surprisingly great rates for everyone inside the state of Louisiana. So call him today at 985-395-4300, 985-395-4300 for all of those surprisingly great rates on auto, home, and life insurance needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to the State Farm underwriting requirements. You know, a year ago, Stefan, I got your first name wrong and your last name right. But Stefan Krajisnik, there we go. See, it only took me a year to get your name right, man. How are you tonight, though?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I appreciate you having me on. You know, with the SEC doing away with divisions and LSU not playing Mississippi State anymore, at least every season, it's going to be more of a test if there's a couple years gap where you have to try to remember my name instead.
Well, I will say this. If the game is on the road, I'm not going to be envious of playing you because I cannot stand the cowbell. I'm just going to be real. But look, I remember, so Stefan, one of the first games I ever went to in 2000, Brandon Tofield scored late and Nick Saban was the head coach. Mm-hmm. People were storming the field, LSU versus Mississippi State in Death Valley. And I'm a chubby fat kid running the field trying to grab a lock of Saban's hair, man. Now, 23 years later, okay, I mean, the man's getting beat by Texas. I mean, this game has meant a lot to both programs, though.
No doubt. I mean, it's a rivalry that goes back, so long and so many memorable games. Obviously in recent history, LSU's, had some success and had their stretch where they really dominated Mississippi State. But, you think back to people who have been rooting for State or for LSU since, the 40s and the 50s, that are still going to games today. It's pretty impressive, how deep this rivalry's gone. And it is one of the downsides. There's pros and cons to the realignment and the changes and things like that. But, losing rivalries like this every year, that's certainly something that's going to be missed.
I greatly agree. And what's interesting about that, too, LSU doesn't play Auburn. I mean, like that, I don't like it. But if it does mean that we get to shut some Texas fans up potentially, I might make an exception. All right. Stefan, let me ask you this. We got an all 22 copy of the game from this past weekend against Arizona. And I was like, I heard, the chatter, okay, Mississippi State, they look different offensively. I'm like, well, no crap. Unfortunately, Mike Leach passed away. Very unfortunate. Yeah, okay, but they're not going to completely do a 180 offensively. Boy, was I wrong. Can you give our listeners, look, you've gone from air raid to running the ball downhill with marks and these backs. I think 5 backs played last week. Can you give our listeners just like what is going on offensively in Starkville?
Yeah, I think a lot of us are still trying to figure it out because, I think like you, we expected a shift for this Mississippi State offense. We expected a more balanced attack. It's been kind of surprising to see them be really run first here in the early parts of the season. What I will say though, and what could change against LSU is First of all, I wouldn't predict Will Rogers to ever throw only 17 passes again in the game. I think that's a bit of an anomaly there. Kevin Barbay, the new offensive coordinator, talked a lot about this past Arizona game and really, put some blame on himself for, that game being close. State had some chances early to pull away. And, they had success with some runs. They were gashing 5, 6, 7-yard runs against, an Arizona defensive line where Mississippi State, I think being an SEC school, felt they had an advantage there in the trenches. But, they were having success in that they started leaning on a little bit too much and got a bit too predictable. And really got way more run heavy than I think we ever expected this offense to get this year. And I think that's going to change when LSU and SEC play kind of ramps up. You can't be so one-dimensional. I mean, frankly, either way, when you're playing against competition like that. But I think especially, after what they did last week, I'd expect more of a balanced attack moving forward. But like you said, it's been surprising to see you check the stats after 2 weeks and Mississippi State's number 2 in the SEC in rushing yards. It's been a minute since we saw that.
Well, I mean, since Mullen, what was it, Dak Prescott, Josh Robinson, by the way, Louisiana kid from my alma mater. But you know what's interesting, though? They're having success doing it, though, right? I mean, Marks, he scored against LSU last year. Why elites got away from him, I'm like, this kid's the best back on the team. But, man, you know what's crazy? I look at him and I could say at the end of the year, this kid could be an all SEC back. He is that good. Have you been surprised about his explosiveness and how good he's looked through 2 games?
Yeah, yes and no. No, in the sense that we saw spurts of it in the air raid, and we saw, you look back to some of those games. I mean, early in that game against LSU, State was having success running the ball, right? And we saw that you can still do the air raid, you can pass it a lot, but having at least 20 rushes a game or something like that, that's when that offense was kind of at its best, when there was a bit more balance. With Jaquavius Mark kind of leading the pack there. They also had Dylan Johnson, who's now at Washington. But the question that I had for Marks going into this season, and they felt like they had depth at running back, so I thought maybe he wouldn't be as much of a workhorse as he has been. I wasn't sure how he would transition from going to his role in the air raid to having 19, 20 carries in the game, along with, I think against Arizona, he had 4 receptions. So he's still kind of, taking part in that side of the offense as well. I was curious to see how he would handle the workload, and he's done a great job with it so far, right? He's shown to do it. He said after week 1 against Southeastern Louisiana, he could feel himself getting winded a little bit, but he felt that as the year went on, as he kind of experienced kind of being in games like that and having that workload, that he'd get better. As the year went on. I mean, he proved that in that, week 2 game against Arizona. And now as, the defensive line start to ramp up, the competition ramps up, it's going to be interesting to watch him play. But like you said, I mean, at this point of the season, it'd be hard to say he's not the first team SEC running back, right?
It would name the other, So the question that I had was name the other, and you can't right now, right?
Not at this point.
Not at this point. But we do have a lot of football to go, but he is definitely making his claim. 4 turnovers that this defense got in the first half, but the offense struggled. If you put your thumb on, you get out of the half, okay, with only 14 points. Now I know you fumbled in the end zone on the first drive, whatever, but the 4 turnovers were after that. If you had to put your thumb on that first half of why you walked out of half with only 14 points, what would it be?
Too conservative, running the ball, trying to run clock. They had after that 4th turnover. So the way it worked out, so State goes up 14-0. They get those 3 interceptions in a row there. That 4th possession for Arizona, they put together a 19-play drive, right? And Mississippi State forces a fumble to keep them scoreless. They return it about 20 yards. State got it at their own 41-yard line, all right? And Zach Arnett in the headset told the offensive coordinator, like, hey, 19-play drive for our defense. Let's run some clock here and give them a chance to keep get a breather. And Arnett said Monday that was the wrong choice. There was a chance there late in the first half for Mississippi State to take a shot, to go up 21-0. Instead, they kind of played a conservative to try to run some clock. They end up with a missed field goal. Arizona goes down, scores a touchdown right before half, and completely flips the momentum going into halftime. That's what it's got to be for State. And I don't know if some of it's a result of a relatively young coaching staff. Sometimes you get a bit too conservative and you say, oh, this is working, don't want to go away from it. But then teams kind of start to catch on. I think that's what happened in the Arizona game. State, especially with some of the struggles that we've seen from this LSU secondary early in the season, right? It's got to be some vintage Will Rogers, right? It doesn't have to be 60 passes in a game, but he's got to go out there, take some shots downfield. If it's an interception, so be it. Sometimes you can play the field position game. Sometimes a pick can be the same as a punt, right? But you got to take shots. You got to keep that LSU defense on its heels, because if they're anticipating run on every play, the LSU defensive front is too good to not take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I mean, I don't want to say that Mississippi State only has one wide receiver. We just haven't seen enough from the other guys outside of Griffin, and so I'm like, okay, well, hey, that I know that dude's going to get his.
Yeah.
Okay, right. And so when I look at, I'm like, well, everybody else hasn't got enough of a chance so far. Let's see what happens. Here's the biggest thing. I don't know if you heard me earlier. The biggest thing for me, Sean Preston, Johnson, and Watson. My goodness.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't have
really good defensively.
It doesn't hurt to have 60-year guys on defense, right?
It doesn't. It doesn't. Now they should start their own podcast, Watson and Johnson.
Yeah. I heard you talking about making sure you trademark that. And
I'm going to trademark it.
You could sell it to them for something.
You know what I wanted? Just want some signed gear in the studio here. Like now I'll give it to them.
There you go.
The truth is that you do have 3 6-year guys in those three. Mm-hmm. Sean Preston, the hit that he had to force the fumble, the interception, he has looked fantastic. And so have both linebackers. What have you seen from this team defensively?
Yeah, Preston's kind of, for lack of a better term, been the most important guy to this defense, because they changed. They got rid of 3 safeties from their starting rotation last year. You needed someone to step up there, and they've had guys, throughout the fall camp that competed and stuff like that. But Sean he's a 6-year guy who hasn't really had his chance to shine, at Mississippi State, but he's been patient, didn't transfer, stayed at State and waited for his turn, and now it's here, and he's got to kind of has that chance to take advantage of it, and he's done so far, right? So there's no doubt with the changes in the secondary, he had to be the guy, and he's been that guy so far. And like you said, I mean, with Watson and Johnson, it's, you almost feel like you're taking them for granted at this point watching them. But when you got guys that are so experienced and you know what you're going to get from them, right? Like, that they know where they got to be. They know they can read a play, before it even happens. I mean, Jet Johnson had some plays. I mean, you see a stat line from that game: 11 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, 2 interceptions. I mean, it's just a crazy stat line, and it's so much of that is due to experience, though, right? He sees Arizona, he sees kind of the formation they have or something like that, and he knows what's coming. And you would imagine at this point, having faced Brian Kelly and Jaden Daniels, I should say, last year, that he understands kind of what this team's looking to do, and same with Nathaniel Watson. You can't coach experience, and that's what's made those 2 guys, so good, on top of the fact that they're both really explosive and really athletic and talented.
Mississippi State was kind of written off by everybody to some extent unfairly because of the unfortunate events with Mike Leach. But I'm not saying this just because you're here. They got dudes, man. I mean, they have dudes. When you look at this game, though, specifically between LSU and Mississippi State, if there's one thing that you want to, you want your biggest question to be answered, what is that going into this one?
It's going to be how Mississippi State contains Jaden Daniels, because, last year when that LSU offense finally started to click and they turned around that 13-0 deficit, Daniels was multidimensional, right? He was able to throw the ball. He was able to run the ball. And State had some troubles with Jaden DeLora last week from Arizona of trying to contain him. When he got out of the pocket, he made some plays happen. Right. That's the biggest thing for State. They've had troubles the last couple of years of containing, mobile quarterbacks who can hurt you in both ways. That's the big thing. They got to find ways to not just get the pass rush to Jaden Daniels, but also contain him in the pocket and get to him before he can get out of the pocket and make some plays with his legs. I feel like most teams that go up against LSU will say that. But just with State's struggles the last couple of years with quarterbacks like that, you can't deny that. It's the biggest thing.
What do you attribute that to? Do you think it's because Arnett is so aggressive and sending in blitzes? What do you attribute that to?
I think that's part of it. I think part of it too, the State, the last few years were just so weird when you look at Mississippi State's history along the defensive line. They haven't really had a great defensive end that can really come off the edge and light up a quarterback, very quickly, right? It's kind of been a team rush, for lack of a better term, that they've needed, multiple guys to come together to get some of those big pass rushes. It's strange that State doesn't have, you look at Jeffrey Simmons and Montez Sweat and Fletcher Cox. I mean, the guys that have come through, Mississippi State, for them to not have a guy on the defensive line like that right now, it's a challenge for them, and they haven't really had that type of guy to really change a game and make a quarterback uneasy in the pocket on any given snap.
All right, a couple more for you. I get you out of here. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
What do you think? What have you assessed from Zach Arnett? Because I got to tell you, man, secretly, like if it was just me and you were having a bourbon back on the back patio watching a game, I would be like, I'm rooting for him. I mean, obviously not against a team that we cover and LSU, whatever, but I'm rooting for him. He was dealt a really bad hand. But man, like even the slip up this weekend with Kublik, all right, like I love that. Okay. What have you assessed from Zach Arnett? It just feels like to me from the outside looking in, the moment hasn't been too big for him, and that went and meant a lot for him against Arizona.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. The Kublik moment too is funny because excuse me, after it was kind of an ugly win and it had some fans uneasy. And I think the perfect way to break some tensions was kind of to screw up like that on air, right? But I think it's like you were saying there. I think he's become a very easy guy to root for, especially for folks in Starkville. He's a guy from New Mexico, but he's really bought into being a Mississippi guy now, and has kind of fit the culture and the personality of so many people in Starkville and Northeast Mississippi. That they've really kind of started to rally around him, especially then when you add on top of circumstances that he went through, and not only is that a coaching staff and players who knew Mike Leach personally that were mourning, that's a fan base that really was really getting close with Mike and really got to know him and had a lot of respect for what he was doing. It was tough for the fans too to go through that loss, and I think throughout all that the community rallied around Zach Arnett and wanted to keep building what Mike Leach had been building the last 3 seasons at Mississippi State, the momentum that they were able to get, on the field, on the recruiting trail, things of that nature. They really wanted Zach Arnett to be the guy to keep that moving forward. And he's done a good job with it, right? Because under tough circumstances, he was able to secure a top 30 signing class. He was able to, quickly make changes to the coaching staff and do what he felt was right moving forward. Was able to deal with things in the transfer portal and get some big additions and get some, key players like Watson and Johnson we keep talking about, getting them back. He was able to do so much so quick under such horrible circumstances that it's really made him an easy guy, at least for the people in Starkville. And like you allude to there, even people outside of Starkville to root for.
All right, last one for you here. The biggest question that you'll field all week. Is Saban done?
I feel like most of your listeners want me to say yes.
Well, I mean, continue. I'm not continue.
I won't say he's done. The problem is Saban done, having an Alabama team that's going to go to the playoff every year and win a national title every year? Yeah, that's done because there's more parity. I think Georgia's probably the key to some of Alabama's lack of success right now.
Right.
But is Saban done having a perennial top 10 program every season? Probably not, because the talent's too good. Would it surprise you if at the end of this year Bama's one loss was that game to Texas? I mean, it wouldn't be too surprising, right? Right. Based on how they played against Texas, it would be kind of surprising. But if we got to November and they were 11-1, it wouldn't be too surprising, right? So I don't think he's done having a top 10 program, a top 5 program. But it's getting more and more difficult to win national titles, because not only is Georgia as good as they are, but Michigan's they're back to being really good every year. Man. Florida State's good. Washington, Tennessee. I mean, look at the Pac-12, USC. There's a lot of good teams right now that can compete with Alabama. And it's weird because Bama's not winning that battle in the trenches and on the defensive and offensive line. It's weird to see. So yes and no to answer your question.
Well, and it's crazy because you wouldn't be surprised if they went 8-4, 9-3.
Yeah. You
also wouldn't be surprised if they go 11-1. That's so drastic when you only have 13 of these things, right? Yeah. Like that's such a drastic shift. So, you're still an AP voter, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Where did you put them this week?
Bama?
Yeah, Bama.
I had them at number 10, if I remember correctly.
Okay. So I think that's where they ended up, right?
I think so. I might have, maybe I had them at 11, but it was around where they were. I could see the argument for them being lower, to be honest. I think part of it is the understanding of, the roster that they have and the talent that they have, and it's going to keep them in the top 10, and people will give them the benefit of the doubt. But are they a for sure top 10 team right now? I mean, you look at some of the teams below them, like in Oregon, look at how they're playing. I mentioned Washington. Washington actually might be just above them now, but Oregon, Utah, look at the way they're playing. LSU, if they can bounce back from that Florida State loss, like there's teams below Bama right now, which is really surprising to say. It's hard to imagine that a team ranked 13 or 14 can be better than Alabama, but it's when the offenses are what they are today, and your secondary for a second straight year is not looking too good, it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, and look, everybody's like, it just doesn't look like Nick, and everybody's like, this isn't right. All right, Stefan Krajisnik of the Clarion Ledger. Thank you so much, buddy. I got your name right this year. I'm going to be honest. I feel accomplished here on the Tuesday.
There you go. You already got your biggest win of the year right there.
No doubt. Thank you so much, buddy. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks for having me on, man.
All right, man. That was fantastic. I agree with him, man. And like we said before he came on, I know that there's a philosophy of keeping Jaden in the pocket. You're going to have to get on the outside with him. And look, this game specifically, you kind of go to Jaden and get in his ear and say, hey, man, they suck against dudes that can run like you. Suck. Let that man get on the outside and do some things. All right. From one guest to another, we go to Zack Nagy of LSU Country and Sports Illustrated. We'll talk to LSU side. He spoke with players today. We'll get to that as well. But let's talk to about our good friends over the Drake Williams Law Firm. DrakeWilliamsLawFirm.com and our good friend Steve Bean over at Bayou Daiquiris and Bayou Boligo.
By the Drake Williams Law Firm, DrakeWilliamsLawFirm.com. Whether you've been injured in an accident, you're preparing for a future with your estate planning, you're getting ready to close in on a real estate deal, or you're about to welcome a new addition through adoption into your family, or you're facing criminal charges, you need very experienced attorneys, and that is what the Drake Williams Law Firm will be able to do for you in navigating the legal system. The door to their cozy office in historic downtown Ponchatoula has been open since 1981. They have helped thousands and thousands of Louisiana families and individuals win cases, close on real estate deals, and regain that peace of mind. Their lawyers over at the Drake Williams Law Firm, Ernie Drake III, Ryan J. Williams, and Summer Vicnair, are very determined, compassionate, and dedicated to their craft. It's the Drake Williams Law Firm, DrakeWilliamsLawFirm.com. Give them a call today at 985-386-7600. Tell them your good friend Blake Ruffino at AYS sent you on by.
Bayou Daiquiris at Bayou Bowl & Go is owned and operated locally by Steve and Lisa Bean. You can find them at 1512 North Highway 190 in Covington, Louisiana. That's 1512 North Highway 190 in Covington. The North Shore's first crawfish drive-thru is about to step it up another notch by bringing you drive-thru daiquiris as well. You can call in your order today at 985-888-1914, 985-888-1914, because you know what? Daiquiris and crawfish, it's a Louisiana thing.
We're back.
Zack Nagy, LSU Country of Sports Illustrated. Good evening, good sir. How are you today?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Learn anything today from the three players that you were able to speak to in media availabilities?
It was good. We got Malik Neighbors, which was kind of a change of scenery. We don't really get to talk to him too much. Good stuff from him as always. People forget that he was committed to Mississippi State before, he ended up flipping to LSU. So he was kind of giving us the rundown a little bit. I put something out on Twitter about that as well, but him just kind of detailing, the process behind it all, like once Ed Orgeron and, everybody got in his ear and officially offered him, and kind of just talking about the process of flipping from one program to the next. It was super interesting stuff. Mekhi Wingo's a pleasure as always. And then Emory Jones, class act. He was kind of just talking about the run game and just really how it's kind of nice having so many guys in your stable for the running back room. So just a lot of productive stuff from those three.
Zach, Grambling in the first quarter had 173 yards against this defense. It's Grambling. Either guys can be playing down. Yeah, it's Grambling, whatever. Offense scored 72 points. There's a lot. I don't want to overreact and underreact to Grambling, either which way. But, man, 173 yards in the first quarter on them is not good, buddy. It's not good at all.
Yeah, and, everybody's going to sit back and talk about the secondary and kind of circle that position group and whatnot.
Again.
But, obviously it wasn't impressive in the slightest. But to me, I'm looking at the defensive line, allowing Chance Williams, their running back, and credit to him. He's a super talented player. He shined, in Tiger Stadium. It was a big game for him. But to allow him to rush for over 100 yards on less than 10 carries is not something that this defensive line should be doing in the slightest. And obviously it was Mason Smith's return, and continuity is going to form eventually. But, in my opinion, I'm looking at the defensive line as a position group that really needs to get their act together quickly, especially against a Mississippi State team this weekend who's starting to kind of incorporate the run game into their offense now under Zach Arnett. So I'm looking at that defensive line as a group that really needs to, get things going.
Zach, there's a philosophy that if you can get home with 4, that means there's more guys in the back end to cover, or you need to send more guys if you're unable to get pressure to help out the secondary. Is there anything specific that you think that they need to do to start helping this DB unit and start generating some pressure? Is there one thing that you put your thumb on?
I feel like the answer that everybody kind of would want me to say here would be have Harold Perkins rush off the edge and allow him to do what he does best. And it's the, see ball, get ball type mentality that Brian Kelly's been talking about. I really think if you utilize his skill set in the best way and allow him to kind of be a versatile weapon, whether it's working him in at inside linebacker as well, and then also throwing him on the edge, you kind of get a two-headed snake there. But in my opinion, it's all going to start with the big guys up front. You have to get in the backfield and put some pressure on Will Rogers and the rest of the quarterbacks for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, that's gonna take some pressure off the secondary, and that's a given. That's a casual take.
Do you think that there's going to be any more personnel changes in that outside of Denver Harris? You think Ashton Stamp sees some more time? What do you think happens?
I mean, if we're sticking strictly with the secondary, I mean, I can't really see too many things switching up. You're going to have Major Burns out there. You're going to have Andre Sam out there. You could see them maybe try to put Sage Ryan in the fold, but I'm not quite sure that's going to be the case either. You're going to have Zy Alexander on that one side, and it's going to be interesting who lines up on the boundary next to him. I wouldn't be surprised to see Denver Harris out there again. I don't think Ashton Stamps is quite ready for SEC competition just yet. Last night I was talking to some people and saying that you need to throw him in the fire eventually, but I don't think this is the one just yet.
Yeah, because, if you take him away from Tutu Griffin and just ask him to cover the other dude, if he gets beat, he gets beat because you haven't seen them on film yet either. And look, maybe you give him some reps, kind of like the Cordell Flott method, right?
I like that. That's really
like the Dave Aranda Cordell Flott method to see, look, if he gets beat, okay, he gets beat on a play. It is what it is. Zack Nagy, LSU Country Sports Illustrated. Anything else you took away from the Grambling game?
I mean, look, Jaden Daniels was impressive, and it's an inferior opponent, and everybody's going to use that as the headliner. It's like, yeah, he threw 5 first-half touchdowns against Grambling, and sure, that's valid. It's a valid take in my opinion. But to see him go through his progressions, to see him hit some intermediate passes was something that I liked. Obviously, we didn't see what you and I like to see with those deep shots of 20-plus yards, and you and I have harped on that for the last couple of weeks, couple of months. But it was impressive to see him go through his progressions, go through his reads, utilize all of his weapons, kind of, use Chris Hilton, use Malik, use Brian Thomas, Kyron. He utilized everybody who was on the field, and I thought that was super impressive. And then, you and I, we love Caleb Jackson. So to see Caleb Jackson get on the field, man. Yeah, that's our guy, man. I'm big on him. I love Pimpton, but I'm a big fan of Caleb Jackson and that true freshman, arsenal that they have. So to see Caleb Jackson do what he does best was super promising. And, Logan Diggs as well. I think your running back room is in an extremely solid position at this point in time, especially with John Emery coming back as well.
Zach, I'm sorry we're kind of crunching in on a little bit of time, so I got a pair for you just really quickly. What do you think the one thing that you're looking forward at Mississippi State? If you walk out of that building on Saturday, hey, this is the one thing that LSU accomplished, and that's why they won.
I want to see them utilize a balanced offensive attack once again. They did it versus Grambling, and I thought it was super impressive. You saw Jaden Daniels utilize his arm, and that was super promising in my opinion. But continuing to carry your success on the run game from Grambling into this week is something that I need to see. 300 yards on the ground is super impressive in my opinion. Certainly an inferior opponent, as I said a minute ago. But, to do that and utilize the weapons that you have in that room was impressive. So you need to see Caleb Jackson, Logan Diggs shine. Josh Williams will do his thing as well. And then, kind of work, John Emery into the fold as well and utilize all the weapons that you have right there.
Yeah, because he's back.
Exactly. So you got everybody.
Do you think Who comes in? Last question for you. Who do you think comes in for Omar Speights?
It's an interesting question. I mean, Greg Penn is somebody who needs to stay on the field all the time.
Right.
Omar Speights is probable for this weekend. We'll see what his status is come tomorrow when we talk to, or Thursday rather, when we talk to Brian Kelly. But Omar Speights is probable for this weekend, so I expect to see him on the field. But when he's rotating in and out, you need to keep Greg Penn on the field. And I'd love to see West Weeks, man. I'm so big on what West Weeks brings this team. Obviously, his brother Whit is a dog as well, but man, I love what West is going to bring in the future. That's somebody that LSU Nation needs to have circled, because we all think West Weeks is going to be something special long term for this program.
I agree. And Speights has just looked like he's been playing a little hurt too. So we'll see.
Somebody mentioned that to me the other day too. He kind of looked a step off in that Grambling game, and he didn't dress out for the second half. He was in street clothes, so step behind. But hopefully this week he can get back on track.
Thank you so much, buddy. Tell everybody where to catch all your stuff, man.
Of course, appreciate it, man.
All right, that's Zack Naggie, LSU Country, Sports Illustrated. We got to get out of here. We're crunched on time. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. Y'all have a good one. Peace.